Hey guys, my name is Haley and today I'm going to be filming a books I want to reread this year. As I talked about in my reading goals for the year, there are several reasons I want to reread things. One is to annotate, which means have a lot of annotations planned for certain books. Two is because I had a mental crisis of what my favorite books of all time are, so I'm going to be doing some rereads in order to put those in order and be able to make a video about it, which I should have done a long time ago because I want to be able to answer that question when people ask me. And apparently I have commitment issues with picking favorite books of all time. That seems like a very high thing to ask of someone who reads as much as I do. And others are just, I want to reread these so I can continue and or finish the series. So first up is going to be that last one, and that is I want to reread Nevernight and God's Grave. This is a series that I read back when I first started my booktube channel, and when asked I always said this was my favorite series, like ongoing series, favorite series of all time, big fan. And then by the time Dark Dawn came out back there, I got it like right when it was released, like signed edition and everything, and I never read it because it had been almost 3 years since I had read these. And I always wanted to go back and annotate these. I don't know if I'm going to do that this round, but I didn't want to read Dark Dawn until I reread these. And I just straight up did not read fantasy last year was the biggest problem, because these are very much fantasy. And I just really want to be able to finish this series. I've always said this is one of my favorite series of all time, and I don't know if that holds up. Part of me was a little bit scared that it's not going to hold up, but we're hoping and praying that it does. Because I do really love J. Kristoff as a person. Next up is a book that I read several years ago and is probably one of the most fun reading experiences I've ever had, and that is House of Leaves. I've always wanted to reread this. It's really long, it's really weird, it's got all kinds of strange formatting and files, and I want to re-experience this book so badly, so I'm gonna do that at some point this year. I wanted to reread it actually during October, and I have way too big of an October TBR to do that, so we're gonna put it in this year's goals. Next up is always in my head when people ask me my favorite books, so I want to figure out where to rank it on a list if I ever make one, and that is The Book of M. This is one of the most fun experiences, and this is also the one that kickstarted my love of speculative fiction, which you've heard me mention many times on this channel in the last 2 years, and it's because of this book. I've always wanted to reread it. I might annotate it. I'm not sure yet, but I'm so excited to reread this and experience it again. The next two are also similar in the vein of The Book of M, are what catapulted my love for thrillers again that I have been deeply in for the last 2 years, and that is The Turn of the Key, which I subconsciously compare like almost every thriller to in my brain, because the pacing of this and the atmosphere is so good that like it has become the comparison. So I do really want to reread this book now that I have it in physical format. And then also I've referenced Neverworld Wake so many times in the last couple of months, and I was like, you know what, I should just reread that book. Like I was referencing it in concerns to like the pandemic and like what would we do if we were able to live this past year over again. And that's what this is. It's a Groundhog Day element is what it often gets called, where you have to relive the same day over and over and over. And I love the way that this book did it. So I plan to do a reread. It's also a very fast read from what I remember, so I think it's time. And then the next category of why I want to reread those is I want to reread these to annotate them. The first of those being The Flat Share. I meant to annotate this at the end of last year. If you watched my favorite books of the year video, this was my favorite book of last year because of how personal it is to me, and that is exactly why I want to annotate it. I don't know that I've ever annotated a contemporary in my life, but it seems very necessary for this one. And then on a similar subject, I want to reread Burn Our Bodies Down. I read this over the summer while I was with Kate, when I was not planning on reading it all. I read this on the beach. We were in New Hampshire, and I was floored at the biblical allusions in this, and I was like, I went into Goodreads like when I finished it looking up reviews, and nobody had ever talked about the biblical allusions, and I was like, am I the only one who sees this? And I always meant to make that video, and I never did because I never got around to rereading and annotating it, so that is on the plan for this year. And then last but not least, we are going to continue, and by we, I mean me and Kate, are going to continue our Twilight buddy read. So we're going to annotate Eclipse and Breaking Dawn. We might add Midnight Sun to that because I already wanted to read that as soon as I finished it last year, but We've been annotating the Twilight books slowly over like the last year and a half or so, so these are next on the docket for that. So yeah, these are what are on my reread pile. That's something I've definitely talked about in my video, is I want to be able to do more rereads in general, and I really haven't done very many at all in the last like 2 or 3 years, so we're trying to fix that with this pile in order to be able to say my favorite books of all time for sure. But let me know if there are any rereads you would like to do this year. Thank you all for watching, and I will see all of you guys next time.